Hello everyone and welcome. This session is brought to you this morning by the Scottish Government. We're delighted to be here in the Nordic Pavilion in the COP26 Blue Zone. For those of you here and those of you online, you're so welcome into this session this morning. What we're going to be discussing over the next 50 minutes is exploring action and ambition to make sport more sustainable. So you're here to hear from esteemed panelists who are joining both present and also online. But just to outline, I'm Claire Poole, I'm here from Sport Positive, and the session that we're covering this morning, what we want to get into is basically we're going to see a showcase of some incredible sport and climate action efforts from both Scotland and the Nordic countries. We're going to explore the role that sport can play in tackling our climate emergency, and we're here to discuss the role of government to support further climate action. So loads to get into, and before I introduce you all to our esteemed panelists here and also those who are joining us virtually, I'd like to pass over for us to watch some short videos from different sports clubs and bodies across Scotland and the Nordic countries to see the action they're taking on climate.
Of fans and people who are interested in football and the club. So we're trying to include the community in a broader. My name is Anne Jensen. I am the Director of Branding and Sustainability at AGF Aarhus in Denmark. In 2020 we launched our sustainability strategy as the first club in Denmark because we want to use our club as a platform to create climate action. Some of the things that we've changed so far is that our jersey is made from 100% recycled material. We've put our sustainability emblem here at the bottom of the shirt. Our stadium is powered by 100% clean energy, and we have started to measure our CO2 emissions. We want to include our fans and the community in the work with sustainability. That's why we've invited to a cleanup event in the forests around the stadium. We have 100% recycled chairs in the fan zone, and we have created a green think tank of fans and people who are interested in football and the club. So we're trying to include the community in a broader sense into the work with sustainability in the club. We definitely also see that there's a potential in the business side of it. We want to create partnerships with sponsors, and we want to make sure that we create a bigger and better platform for our sponsors to invest in. AGF is a historic club. It was established already 140 years ago, and we want to do our part to go in front and make sure that we're still here and our planet is still here in 140 years from now.
You don't need to do big things to change the world. All you need is a bike. It doesn't matter if you're popping to the shops, going to school or work, or just enjoying the open road. Bikes make us better. And the more of us that get in the saddle, the better the world gets. Our health, our communities, our climate. All for the next generation. That's what we're celebrating. The power of the bike. Glasgow and venues across Scotland will host the first event of its kind, never seen nor cycled before. Elite and amateur riders from more than 120 countries will come together to compete across 13 disciplines. It's one mega event where Scotland will welcome the world with open arms, dreams will become reality, and more than 150 world champions will be crowned. Around the globe, over 1 billion people will watch the action and fall head over heels in love with cycling. So don't just sit there, sit on a bike, and we'll show the world what we mean by the power of a bike. Join us on our journey to 2023.
Climate change. The biggest challenge the sport of golf has ever faced. It's causing more intense, ferocious, and extreme weather conditions, which are impacting the professional game on an increasingly regular basis. Even golf's oldest and most prestigious major championship, the Open, has been severely disrupted by Mother Nature in recent years.
Our game is built around this relationship with nature. I think with our eyes being open to the damage that's being done, we have to do something. We have to do our little bit to help.
So for us, it's important now to look forward and think about, well, how can we do more? How can we build this platform and make it even more powerful? So we're delighted in 2021 to be collaborating with one of our official patrons for the Open, MasterCard, to use the Open Water Initiative as a tool for raising awareness and generating funding support for the Priceless Planet Coalition.
One person can't make a massive change, but if we all get behind it, obviously that incremental change, it becomes a big change in the end.
For every refillable bottle we sell on site, we'll make a donation to the Priceless Planet Coalition. People can also contribute at select venue locations and online. And we think together as a community through this championship, we'll be able to do something really special to help play a part in restoring global forest.
So the project that we've got here at the Sustainability Zone is a fantastic showcase for us in terms of how we can work with our partners and our stakeholders to bring in future technologies. In this case, renewable energy generation, storage, electric vehicle charging, and zero-emission electric vehicles. We're very, very fortunate to have had access to the expertise, the industry insights from Agreco. And when we look at the major sporting event sector around the whole world, sustainability and legacy are topics that are really coming to increasing focus. So I think more and more now, event organisers are very aware of the need to evolve and change what we're doing and how we do things.
To make sure future generations can live and play like we do today, we need to restore balance with nature. We all need to change, but we cannot change if we are not made aware. Once aware, we will engage, and once engaged, we will change. By connecting more than 3 billion people across the globe, football has a unique possibility in taking a leading role, raising awareness, and uniting us despite our differences in cultures, languages, and religions. Players, clubs, business, and supporters all have a role to play. This is a game we cannot afford to lose.
Hi, my name is Morten Thorsby and I'm playing for Sampdoria in the Serie A and the Norwegian national team. I'm concerned about the environmental problems we are facing, and I believe football has to do more to address these challenges. Therefore, last year I created the foundation We Play Green. We Play Green's vision is to help mankind restore its balance with nature. Our goal is to activate the 3.5 billion football fans all over the world by creating awareness and inspiration in partnership with clubs and players. Join us in this vital game. Let's play to save the planet.
My name is Kevin Benares. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Geary Sports Centre. Here here at the Geary Sports Centre. We're based in Inverurie, rural Aberdeenshire. We are a not-for-profit charitable sports and leisure community facility. We provide for all ages, from newborns through to seniors, across a vast variety of sports. Why is climate action important to us here at Geary Sports Centre? Well, we're a community facility providing for all ages and abilities. We see ourselves as not only a facility for people to engage in sport, but we also see it as a facility to be educational and provide other benefits to our community. Project number one, the main aspiration was for us to fully upgrade all of our building lights to LED, and the major benefit we found from that was the aesthetics and visual appearance of our community facility, 25 years old now, and upgrading everything to LED transformed the space. Climate Challenge Fund number two, we engaged with communities and businesses in the area to work on driver efficiency, use of energy at home as well to improve on energy bills. Within the facilities here, we introduced new reliable doors to retain heat within the building. We put in buffers on all fire exit doors around the facility. We've seen some great wider benefits from the projects we've delivered here. The main one being the savings we've had in our energy bills. That has allowed us to reduce our membership costs, allowing our facilities and services to become more affordable and accessible. What the future holds is a new exciting partnership with Motive UK, which has seen the install of a renewable energy container with solar panels and wind turbine. We're also now working on putting over 100 solar panels on our flat roof.
There's a huge potential for sports to do good. First of all, sports can be a role model. So be climate neutral, care, have the right values. Sports can then also be used as a platform to really raise awareness for the problems out there. And finally, it can also be used as a platform to generate real impact by, for example, raising funds, launching initiatives. And with my race team in Extreme E, which is the electric off-road global racing series, we want to set an example and really be trailblazers in how sports can accelerate positive change. In sports, the key people who have to come together is, first of all, the teams themselves, that you really live it credibly and really care credibly. That's every mechanic, every driver, team owner, team boss, etc. That is the basis of it. Beyond that, then of course, the greatest power lies within the fans. Because, of course, the fans are so numerous, and if every fan joins us and does a small step towards the greater good, the power is huge. Governments play an absolutely central role in setting the frameworks for us to become a more value-based economy. And it's the same in sports as well. So the government can set the framework for becoming plastic-free, for becoming more circular with all of the materials we're using, and for us to learn to value our resources more.
Brilliant. That was fantastic to see those videos and see some of the work that sport are taking on climate action, both in Scotland and Nordic countries. And a cameo there from Nico Rosberg, Formula One world champion and sustainability entrepreneur, who you've now got a preview of what we're all going to be talking about, because you saw him answer those questions, so you're already ahead of the game on that. So now I would like to introduce you to our esteemed panellists. So first of all, Ms. Marie Todd, MSP, Government Minister in Scotland for Public Health, Women's Health and Sport. Welcome, Ms. Todd.
Thank you.
Philip Russell, Assistant Director of Sustainability at the RNA. Wonderful to have you, Philip. And joining us virtually, who hopefully are going to be popping onto your screens just now, Morten Thorsby, founder of We Play Green and footballer for Sampdoria and Norway. Hi, Morten. And Rune Octander, Director of International Development and Cooperation at the Norwegian Sports Federation, Hello, Rune. Lovely to have you both with you. I can't hear either of you, but hopefully I'll be able to hear you shortly when we get into the discussion, but we can see you and wonderful to have you here. So first of all, to kick things off, I think let's set the scene. All of you have roles within sport, but can you tell our participants how those roles are intersecting with climate action? And Ms. Todd, if I can start with you.
So, as you can imagine, as a politician in 2021, climate change is the most important priority that we have. So the Scottish Government, right across all of our portfolios, is considering climate action and taking action. Sport is really important. Not only can we help to reduce the carbon footprint of sport itself, but also we can use sport to galvanise people. You heard a number of people in those videos talk about the reach of sport and the impact of sport. So there are a lot of fans out there, a lot of people feel very connected to sport, and it's a real way to galvanise wider action. Sporting sector does have a carbon footprint through its facilities and transport, but on the plus side, about 53% of people in Scotland play sport or get involved in sport. About 14% are members of clubs, so there's a real opportunity to tap into that engagement and to change behaviour.
Love that. So we'll stop there and then we'll come back to you on more, but I think already a really important point that's come through here is that through sport, in terms of tackling climate action, we can meet people where they are through sport, can't we, which is massive, and brilliant stats as well in terms of how many people are engaging with sport in Scotland. Amazing. Philip, obviously the RNA, incredibly iconic organisation, and St Andrews. Talk to me briefly about the way your work is intersecting with climate action.
Okay, no, well, thank you, Claire. Thank you for chairing the discussion, and thank you to the Scottish Government for bringing this platform together. Really important topic. So for us as an organisation, we are a governing body for the sport of golf everywhere outside of the US and Mexico. So we're working with 144 different countries. And fundamentally, we are working to make golf more accessible, inclusive, appealing, and to ensure it's thriving in 50 years from now. So when we look at that kind of timeline, and we are acutely aware of the changing climate that we're seeing every day, as an outdoor-based sport, we're incredibly reliant on the integrity of our natural ecosystem, weather patterns. So we know this is a huge area of work for us, one that we're committed to, and looking forward to discussing a little bit about that today.
Amazing, and we saw your video with like amazing but terrifying imagery of the impacts that are being had already. So Morton, hopefully I'll be able to hear you now, our athlete of the panel, and bringing your perspective. Talk to us about your journey from professional footballer and, you know, so heavily involved in sport to take an action on climate. Can't hear you yet, but go ahead. I think everyone at home can hear you, and hopefully they'll sort out the audio for us. Thanks, Morton. Shame. Thank you so much, Morton. I'm really looking forward to hearing more from you as the discussion continues. And last but not least, Rooney, I'd love to hear from your perspective at the Norwegian Sports Federation, your journey, your work around climate action as well. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rooney, and wonderful to hear from you already this morning. So now, hopefully you've all heard from our panelists. We've set the scene a little bit, so we're going to dig into some of the bigger questions now in terms of sport and climate change. So Ms. Todd and Philip, we're going to stick with you just briefly to think about. We've already touched on some of it already, but the role that sport can play in terms of contributing to the climate emergency. So we've already heard a few ways there through the videos initially and through initial interventions, but Ms. Todd, in terms of the work in Scotland and the work you're doing, how do you feel that sport can take a role within the climate emergency here in Scotland?
So I think sport is a really powerful inspiration for communities, and I think that's one of the most important things that we can do in sport to help people to change behaviour and to tackle climate change. But you see the advantages quite quickly. If you saw the chat from the Geary talking about in Geary how they managed to save money for their club and reduce the costs of becoming members. So there's pretty immediate benefits from becoming green, which everyone in the community can feel. And I think that can be replicated right the way throughout every layer of sport. So, you know, from community grassroots up to right up to elite sports. There's ways, because of the place that sport has in our communal life. So I think it can be a real power for good, a real force for good. And I think that if sport, like Morton, you know, sports stars pick up the climate change challenge and raise awareness of it, I think that can have a real worldwide impact. Because we know that within the climate change public engagement, they talk about trusted messengers, and people like sports stars really are considered role models and trusted messengers. So by him leading the way, that will make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And Morton, you changed the number on your shirt most recently, didn't you, to raise awareness? Can you tell people about that? I presume they can. Amazing. We're having a few audio issues. Most of you, I think, can hear Morton at home, but ourselves just here on the panel can't hear everything you're saying, Morton. But you know, it's wonderful to have your interventions. It's our end. It's not your fault at all. But it's wonderful to get that insight for the people who are listening. So thanks a million for that. And Philip, golf, obviously, such an amazing professional sport, so watched around the world, but also at a grassroots level. There's so much going on. So how's your work intersecting with driving this action on climate?
So I think we talk about two key issues. So the first would be communication and raising awareness, and the second would be collaboration. So for us, we're in a very special position that we are both an event organizer and a governing body. So if we look at, for instance, the Open, so the oldest of golf's majors, which we organize, and for example, if we look at the reach of that event, if you put all our channels together, we've got a potential reach exceeding 500 million households.
Wow.
So even small lines of messaging into these events, for instance, in the video, you saw the work that we've done with various stakeholders on single-use plastic. Very, very powerful to get it out there and start the discussion, get people thinking about how sport is interacting with topics like plastic, what are some of the changes we can make at home. So incredibly important for raising awareness. And then the second big one for us is collaboration. And we know that in this world of the sports sector that we're operating in, we've got a very, very powerful public-private sector interface. And with that, there's, I think, quite unique opportunities to bring these projects together. Again, you saw some of the work on renewable energies, low carbon solutions coming in, and those have been made possible by collaboration.
Yeah.
So I think a quick summary of those there. Major events, hugely important, but equally down through to grassroots. We're very keen that at the small individual facility level, there are steps that facilities can take. We're funding a lot of research in terms of how clubs can become more resilient, more adaptive, because we know the climate change issue is not going away, and it's affecting facilities in many, many different ways all around the world. So we want to help lead, we want to help people build resilience and start thinking about the proactive solutions that we can take.
Amazing. And I think for me, I'll chip in, chair's choice. I get to say a few bits myself. In terms of our work more broadly in sport and climate, I think one of the biggest things that we're constantly looking at is the ability for sport to engage people who perhaps otherwise wouldn't be engaged on climate change. So, you know, huge sectors of our society are mobilising around this now, but it is difficult to reach everyone with this messaging, especially those who perhaps aren't as engaged in reading the environment pages of The Guardian every day, etc. It's wonderful to be able to use grassroots, local community sport and professional sports to be able to get messaging to them and help, you know, make people understand what's happening and why it's so important. And also, like in your video, Philip, the impacts on the sports we love. You know, we know sport has an impact on the environment and we have a footprint when we organise sports, but we also know that the wider climate change challenges are going to impact the sports we love, how they're played, when they can be played, and how often we get to enjoy them. So I think that's brilliant. So let's start on the key enablers. We can hear? Morton and Rooney, we should be able to hear you now, so hopefully you can tell us about the ways, Rooney, let's come to you in terms of, from a federation perspective, how you feel as though sport can effectively contribute to the climate emergency. Go ahead. Do you want to tell him to? Thanks so much, Rooney. That's amazing to have your contribution as well. And let's talk now about the key enablers. So we're obviously government minister, events organiser and governing body, you know, footballers, federations, etc. So I think the answer is probably all of us and many more. But who, let me come to you first, Philip, who do you think are the key enablers to ensure that this all comes together into meaningful action and not just maybe nice words that then don't sort of penetrate into further action?
No, it's a great question, Claire, and I think that there's absolutely a central responsibility of sport in terms of associations, governing bodies, federations, individual facilities. And I think sport's embraced that, and I think sport now knows the scale of the challenge and also the strategic importance of the topic moving forward. Certainly something that we've embedded centrally into our strategy. So I'd say that the sports sector has a key role to, let's say, to catalyse the discussion. But then equally with that, very important to have that line of engagement with the public sector, with central government, with local authorities, to be looking at opportunities. How can we ultimately work together, pool resources and move this agenda forward? So there's some great examples that we can share certainly as we move around the UK, staging the Open, all the different local authorities that we engage with, and how we can use this major sporting event as a catalyst for action. And a key word to bring in is legacy. So when we pack up and we move on to the next venue, what can we leave behind in terms of greater awareness, looking at volunteering, getting young people involved, getting them thinking about this, and equally thinking from a physical infrastructure perspective. We're doing a lot of work now on electric vehicle charging, how we can phase in low carbon solutions to our event that we deliver. Yeah. So I think there's a number of important stakeholders working together, but those are two initial ones that were top of my mind.
Amazing, and I love that because I think we do a lot of work with stadiums and venues and facilities, and we see that a lot. If we can change behaviours in those facilities, they're much more likely to be taken into people's lives in terms of substantive behavioural change, which is brilliant. So, Ms. Todd, for you, as the government minister, who do you feel the key enablers are to drive this meaningful action?
So I don't think there's any one individual or any one governing body or any one single aspect of our society. It has to be all of us, and it has to be all of us working together. Each and every one of us has to make changes, and we have to work together to make the biggest impact. And that's never easy. But I suppose, over the last 18 months, we've faced a really enormous challenge in terms of COVID. We've seen people work together in a way that they never have. We've seen people who are normally on very opposite sides of the fence come together and turn to face a common enemy, and we need to do that for climate change as well.
Yeah, love that.
Really, really important. There's lots of organisations in Scotland. Part of my role is to make sure that we connect organisations like Sports Scotland and Zero Waste Scotland. They've done a lot of work together, but at each and every stage of the journey, we need to be making changes, and I think it's, I think it's perfectly doable. So one of the other things, there haven't been very many positives over the last 18 months. There really haven't. But one of the things that we've done is achieved the impossible. Time and time again, we've done things which we really thought were impossible. Yeah. And we need to hang on to that belief and do more of it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's it. We need to, it's been a crazy time, but we need to remember how we all came together and how we brought that together and move that now into the climate emergency, don't we, and continue that effort. But I think a really important point there, because we often think within sports, what the key enablers are in sports, but actually a massive in terms of sport not to work in a silo. A lot of our venues are multi-use. A lot of them are working with local communities, host cities, local and national governments, etc. So I think a really important reminder there that if we just keep our learnings in sport and we don't take from perhaps culture and arts and fashion and science and other areas, that we might be missing a trick.
Absolutely. So we need to be working, we need to discard the portfolios and the egos, I'm afraid. Get rid of all of that. Get rid of all of that and work together. Turn to face this common enemy, just as we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, in terms of the key enablers as well, I think since we've seen especially broadcast media take hold of this more, and we're now seeing more coverage and discussions on climate change within sports coverage and packages that go alongside events to talk about the impacts on climate, we're now seeing a massive rise in mainstream media and then fan engagement and stuff. So I think the we can't forget about the media and also fans. I think the amount of organisations we work with, and really what they say is, when the fans ask for it, it gets tabled, it gets put up for discussion, and we need to do more because the fans are asking for it. So I think a big takeaway for me in this, in terms of who the key enablers are, whilst we've got a duty within sport and within government to do work, that actually individuals can play a massive role in this as well. Even in individual level, use your voice, talk about what you want to see from your sports, and bring that together. So we're last 15 minutes or so, and just want to touch on the role that government can play to support further action. And I think it's absolutely incredible that we're here at COP26 and we have, a Minister for Sport here, because it's not super frequently that government ministers join these conversations. So more power to you, Ms. Todd, for being here. But we've seen it in governments globally, but I'm excited to see how government can play a more substantive role in this. So how do you feel as though, from your perspective, you can support further action in this area?
So the Scottish Government can take a leading role, actually. We can support further action by engaging with different sports and understanding their needs. So each sport is unique and will have different needs. There's no one size fits all in this area, but we can engage with each sport and find out where we can add value and make more impact. This summer we did a survey of sports governing bodies to find out what work they're already doing in this area and what the barriers are and what kind of support they would value. So we feel that we're in a good position. We understand where we're at. The main barriers for sports governing bodies were cost, time, awareness, and knowledge of how to act, as well as coping with the challenges of COVID-19. So sports were, almost all sports, even the outdoor sports, were quite severely impacted by the pandemic, and we're in a recovery phase at the moment, so things are pretty challenging for lots of sports in Scotland and worldwide. But it is an opportunity. There has been huge behaviour change, and there's an opportunity for capturing more behaviour change going forward. We don't have to go back to the way things were before. We can look forward and, as they say in that glib way, build back better.
Yes.
But it is there is some truth. The reason it's a cliche is there is some truth in it. There's a real opportunity to make a difference going forward now. So they're looking for knowledge and information sharing on types of action that can be taken, practical measures, and support with communicating with their members. And of course, again, over the course of the pandemic, we have built really close relationships with sports. We've had to, in order to host events safely and to ensure that our sport could continue to some extent at a time when we were so restricted and people couldn't be together. And I would have to say I'm very hopeful that those strong relationships will see us working closely together going forward, and we'll be right there alongside sports governing bodies and trying to help them to have the impact that we all want to see.
Yeah, amazing. And I'm sure you'd reflect that, Philip, but additional thoughts in terms of the role you'd like to see government, especially from both put on your sports organiser hat and also your governing body.
Well, I mean, we absolutely. I mean, we've had very good experiences in this sector. We're very pleased to have a strong line of dialogue with Scottish Government. Obviously, Gulf and Scotland have a very, very close and important relationship with one another. We're staging the 150th Open in St Andrews, the home of golf, next July. So I think, from our perspective, government does an important role in, let's say, establishing the framework for addressing these issues. So when we think about the energy transition, when we think about the circular economy, when we think about the role of youth, and to really highlight some of the key opportunities. And then, to Ms. Todd's point, it varies from sport to sport about how we'll engage with those and what particular opportunities each individual sport or event is going to carve out. But I think in terms of demarcating that framework, highlighting the priority issues, very important role for government, and I think one that's being embraced. And then from a governing body's perspective, from a event organiser's perspective, we can say, okay, what are we going to look at trying to focus on in the next 18 months, 2 years? How are we going to go about it? And which of our partners can we leverage to come on that journey with us? And I think that's the real unique opportunity, as I said at the outset, is that sport has this amazing reach of partners, stakeholders, fans, commercial partners. And when we put that together, we form an incredible momentum to address this global issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from our perspective and the role of government, even as you mentioned there, some of the barriers, Ms. Todd, in terms of that, and even I think more broadly the work that we do, we can see even if there's support from government in terms of underlining the importance of this area for sport. Often, especially at something like the COP, we hear a lot from governments and civil society, business to a greater extent, and really this year is the first year that sport's been covered quite extensively at the side events at the COP, which is incredible. But I think even that underlining that governments, that sport can play a role, they have got an exciting and engaging way to help bring people along with this and help reach our nationally determined contributions, or what governments sort of putting forward as their contribution, that sport nationally and internationally can help achieve those goals as well, can't it? In terms of just the barriers, it's good. Some of the barriers have been mentioned, but I think maybe just to dig into a little bit before we finish off with final thoughts as well. And obviously we've heard from some of your federations what the barriers are. Have you felt that's been reflected as well in terms of time, resource, investment, etc., that whilst maybe the will is there and you want to move more quickly, that actually there is those barriers still there, Philip?
Absolutely, and I think we need to be transparent and say it's not easy to do this. I mean, the challenges that we're facing are not easily solved. When you look at staging major events, is a hugely complex, very time-consuming process, months, years of planning. So when we look at innovating, it absolutely can be done, but it's not easy.
No.
And it's not straightforward. It does take time, it does take investment, it takes staff resource. And we know, I mean, case in point, the project that we saw on the video there to completely eliminate single-use plastic water bottles from a major sporting event was not straightforward.
No.
Probably 8 months of planning to bring it to reality. But we did it. We worked with some fantastic partners, Blue Water. Delighted that MasterCard, one of our patrons now, have come in and got involved in that. So we've shown that when you start these projects going, they will grow because people want to be involved with them. We all know these are the important things. But it's that first injection of time, of investment to get it going. But I think we're seeing that now all around the world, that more and more events, federations, facilities are making that first step. And it's that key first step, because once we've got it moving, it's going to gain momentum and it's going to keep growing and more people are going to come behind it.
Yeah, amazing. And Ms. Todd, I think from you what I'd love to hear is, we're obviously at the Nordic Pavilion at the COP. This event's been put together by the Scottish Government and we saw some amazing case studies there of different work that's happening in these countries. Do you have thoughts on how perhaps there can be, how we can learn more best practice from other countries who are doing similar efforts in this area?
So obviously, I should have said already that signing up for the UNFCCC Sports for Climate Action Framework is a great way for sports to organisations or events to display climate leadership and to take responsibility and to inspire others. That provides a framework that has a worldwide reach. I think, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, and we have, climate change has been on our minds for a very, very long time, but we all know that we have reached crunch time and we have to take action now. And I think we will see people coming together and taking leadership, and a big coming together of the world at something like this, where people can look around and say, well, they're not doing this and they're not doing that, and we haven't done this, and we're doing a little bit better. What we need is for all of that ego to just fall away and people to come together and say, right, we're in an absolute emergency situation and we need to take action. What can we do? What can we learn from the rest of the world, and how do we make this happen? And I look forward to seeing how the next couple of weeks evolve. There's a number of sports events, and I'm looking forward to all these conversations, because I think sport does bring something very different to these conversations, and I think we can inspire, and we can change the world.
Yeah, absolutely, the power of sport.
Absolutely.
And I think that mention of the UN Sports for Climate Action Framework is so crucial. Now nearly 275 organisations globally signed up, and so much there in terms of that global framework, best practice, agreeing to principles that we can all get behind and use it as a bit of an anchor for sports work going forward. So if you're not already involved with that, we recommend that you do get involved. So in the last few minutes, Philip, I'll come to you first. Any final thoughts if we think about our audience in person and online who are tuned in, and they might be engaged in sport in many different ways, participating, spectating, working with sport. It might be a sports organisation themselves. What do you think are the bigger takeaways from today, or things that you think organisations should be thinking of in this journey to take climate action?
So I would summarise, Claire, so the two topics I mentioned at the beginning, so communication and then collaboration. So, and just to talk to each of those for a minute, when we look at the first, communication, the world of sport is enormous, and we think of the millions and millions of people around the world that play sport, that work in sport, that are sponsors of sport. It's an incredible community. And I think it was touched on earlier, is that the topic around how our climate's changing, the impact that we're having on ecosystems, is not always easy to understand. It's very complex, the science is complex, and I think there is a piece of work that is being done, and more people now are trying to realize or think about the right way to do it, is to drive change at the individual level. And I think one of the key roles of sport is to bring this complex, sometimes difficult topic back to reality with the people and say, well, this might affect your football club, your golf club, it might affect how you go cycling, it might affect your snow sports that you play, and it makes it real, it makes it personal. And I think that's really important. And then the second one, sort of conclusion from my side, is to collaborate. We've got to collaborate to address this. And that means government, that means sports federations, governing bodies, individual facilities, sponsors, players, professional athletes, all coming together to say, as a community, we've all got a huge vested interest in making sure that we've got a stable future here.
Yeah.
We've got to find a way to do it. We can find a way to do it, but we've got to work together.
Yeah, I love that as well, because I think we can have that amazing competition that goes into sport on the track, on the field, on the course, but outside of that and tackling these issues, we can put that competition aside and focus on the collaborative effort.
Absolutely.
Love that. Ms. Todd, final thoughts from you in terms of, from a governmental perspective, what you've taken away from the session, or you know, your mission going forward?
So the Scottish Government is committing to exploring a package of climate action support for Scottish sport, working closely, so collaborating, working closely with partners, Sport Scotland and Zero Waste Scotland, and sports governing bodies such as the Scottish Football Association. We're going to learn from those sports governing bodies that are already undertaking work in the area to understand the specific needs of all sports at all levels, and together we intend to make support Scottish sport to make meaningful progress in their sustainability ambitions. We want Scotland to take action and to lead the world. I mean, I love it when Scotland leads the way.
The best thing.
We want to be an example to our communities, and we want to lead the world in that. So we think if we all play our part, we can help Scotland to reach net zero by 2045, and we can help to inspire other countries to do the same.
Absolutely. A small but very powerful nation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're nearly out of time today, but I just want to, before we finish off, thank the guests that we've had both here and online. So Ms. Todd, Philip Russell, Rune Ochtanda and Morten Thorsby, thank you all for your involvement and your engagement with this really important topic. Thanks to the Scottish Government for organising the event and the Nordic Pavilion for hosting us. And I guess from all of us at COP26, thanks so much for joining us. My name's Claire Poole from Sport Positive. It's been my pleasure to be involved today, and we look forward to seeing you at other sporting events throughout the week. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.